Today, I wanted to talk about a strategic and smarter way to learn the piano in the best way possible. I want you to think about 2 different practice sessions. I'm just trying to get this information by drilling it over and over. I have no idea what any of this means, but I'm too lazy to figure out what it all means, so I'm just gonna drill it over and over, hoping that it will stick. I'm practicing this piece that I can understand it. Maybe I can glean something from this piece and apply it in future pieces ahead to progress in my piano learning. You see the difference? One was intentional and thoughtful and was strategic in their way of thinking. Thinking about learning is really important. You wouldn't think about thinking about thinking, and thinking about thinking is metacognition, and that is what I wanted to talk about in the 6 levels of thinking that can potentially 10x your learning if you understand these core levels better and apply them in your piano learning. So, let's get started. There's 2 levels of learning that most people engage in all of the time. They're not bad levels, but they're not great levels, and they're called remember and understand. Basically, the remember level is the first level that involves memorizing facts and basic concepts. Some examples in music could be like you learned a G major scale. You learned it's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. The understand level is essentially you understand what you're doing. You could probably teach it back to me. You could say, oh yes, this is A because it's 3 steps down from C. Or this is an A major chord because it has the notes A, C sharp, and E. You can kind of teach it back to me at a very simple level of understanding. There are a couple of limitations to these 2 first levels of knowledge quality. Let me give an analogy. Our brain is like a snobbish lady who could care less about a lot of things. She only remembers what she wants to remember, and if it's irrelevant, she is not going to pay attention. She goes to the grocery store and she sees her best friend, and she knows that her best friend has some juicy gossip. So she is going to talk to that friend and remember everything that friend said. She'll talk to another person at the store, and that person will have nothing to satisfy her. She literally remembered nothing because none of that information was relevant to the snobbish lady. This is kind of how your brain works. It only remembers relevant and meaningful information. Let's go back to that example that you memorized a G major scale, or you memorized that this is an A and this is a B. If you didn't make it meaningful to you, your brain is going to actively forget it. Because the way our brain works is it takes energy to create those neural connections. It takes energy to form those different schemas in our brain. Our brain is not going to exert all that energy to remember every single thing you do. It's not like an on and off switch where you say, okay, brain, I want you to remember this and I don't want you to remember this. No, it's not going to do that because its intention is for you to survive. So you have to actually implement different ideas to help increase that learning. And here's the deal. When you remember that G major scale or that A on a flashcard, that's information in isolation. It's kind of like when you're looking for something in your house. I'll give you a really good example. The other day I was trying to clean my piano and I was looking for this specific glass cleaner. But we're going through a kitchen renovation right now and the whole kitchen is upside down. I can't find anything because now everywhere I look, everything is in a different place with no relation to anything else. So this glass cleaner was in isolation and it was very hard for me to find it. But when our kitchen is finally back in order, which I pray it will be fast because I can't stand our kitchen right now, I will be able to find this glass cleaner. This being in somewhere in random location in the house is not relevant. It's confusing. These first 2 levels of remember and understand, they're a necessary component of learning, but you need to be smarter about those 2 levels. In fact, they're actually named lower order of learning, or LOL, because your brain is just laughing at you because you're just focusing on remembering and understanding, and if you don't have any relationship, is going to be a problem. So how do we solve this LOL phenomenon? We make it hot with higher order thinking. And the next 4 levels I'm going to talk about demonstrate higher order thinking or hot thinking. If you've been following learning science research, you know that what I've been talking about comes from Bloom's levels of taxonomy. A guy named Benjamin Bloom in 1956 created this thing all about knowledge quality, but then in 2001 it got revised, so this is the revised Bloom's taxonomy. Alright, let's talk about the next 4 levels. The third level that you might want to consider is called apply, and so this is basically like taking that G major scale and then applying it to a new situation. Very simple problem solving. So now instead of just learning what exactly a G major scale is, now you look specifically for a piece with a G major scale in it, and then you try to analyze how did this piece use the G major scale. Basically, putting new information that you have learned in new contexts. But there's a level even better than that, called analyze. A really easy way to think about analyzing is comparing and contrasting information with each other. So like, let's say you learned a G major scale, right? But then you think to yourself, well, what other scales are there? Oh, I heard there's an A major scale. Okay, what's the difference between A major scale and G major scale? Okay, let me look at 2 pieces with 2 different scales. Let me see how these compare to each other. All of a sudden, your understanding of that scale is deepening because now it's in relation to something else. Maybe something that's conflicting with that idea that you just initially learned. The 5th stage of Bloom's taxonomy is all about evaluation. And that's kind of a big word, so let's say judgment. You're making a judgment about the G major scale in a certain context, like a different piece that you're working on. This is kind of like you're saying, so what? Why does it matter that I'm using G major scale in this piece? What's the whole big idea? Well, the big idea is that the whole piece is using a very specific combination of notes, and it's really important because that establishes many different factors. And from that certain set of notes comes different chords. If you really understood how valuable a G major scale was, and you took time to actually evaluate why that's so important, the so what, you're actually thinking at a higher level, and you're actually going to learn that G major scale much faster. You're going to be less likely to forget that because now it has been made more meaningful to you and you understand its context in the bigger picture. I'd say that the last level, create, is really self-explanatory. You're creating new information from learned information, essentially. But here's my advice. You don't have to get all the way up to create. I'd stick primarily with levels 3 to 5. I'm gonna talk about how I use these 6 levels with the famous piece Golden Hour. So I'm just gonna quickly look at this piece, and this piece is fairly simplistic. I found this music on Sheet Music Direct. I'm not gonna really post the music. I don't know how that all works with copyright. Instead of just playing note by note, which a lot of people just do and they don't really think about it, like I said, we're gonna think at those higher levels of thinking, specifically at level 5. Into this is E major, so it looks like we're on. Okay, so what are these notes? It looks like 2, 3, 5, 6. 2, 3, 5, 6. And it does that 4 times. I'm going to interpretively think about this. This is called Golden Hour. So obviously I think it's going to be dreamy. So he wants to do. And then he does that 4 times. So that's just that's just going up the scale. I'm going to think of a E major scalar pattern 4 times in this cycle process. Okay, left hand is A major chord. It almost looks like an Alberti bass. Okay, so then we put it together. And it does the exact same thing in the next line. Instead, it just goes down by step. So first it was here, then it goes down. And we're going to do that. But this time, instead of it doing it 4 times, it does it 3 times. And then it goes down a half step to go to the next chord. Okay, so we have A major, which is the 4 chord in E major. Then we have G sharp, which is the 3 chord. And then we have an augmented to add some sort of mystery since this is a dreamy kind of piece. And then we have F sharp minor, which is the 2 chord. And then we go back to E major. So we really just travel down from scale degree 4. So I just finished the first page, and I could explain it to you in like this is a whole page of music, but I can explain it to you in like 4 different ways, right? Instead of 100 different ways. And it won't take me that long to memorize it because it makes sense. Everything has a relationship with each other. So basically it's a chord progression going from 4 to 1 with some different motives and repetition. Okay, let's look at the second page. Oh, that's wrong. A major. Okay, this second page is even easier than the first page because it's the first page repeated, but this time it's just the chords in the left hand. A major, G sharp minor, G augmented, F sharp, going to E major. And now, instead of all that stuff, now it's just repeated notes. It's just a repeated G sharp, which is the 3rd note of a regular E major chord. So we just have this octave to make things interesting and have that heightened sense of glow since it's a golden hour. So we have and it just keeps going. Sometimes then it goes to an F sharp, which is just a step down, and all of it is chord tones. But then the plot thickens right here when he adds the 7th tone of E major, which is D sharp. And then he just goes up the E major triad. And then this development section, he starts experimenting with A major harmony. We were in E major that whole time. This is making a lot of sense. Okay, just from those 3 lines, I can already tell a bunch of relationships. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I'm doing this pretty fast because I did have a little bit of planning for this video, but when you're doing this kind of thinking, it's not going to be as fast as like 2 minutes because it's a video. It's going to take you some time. You're going to experience some sort of cognitive load where you're feeling your brain actively working. It's not a passive thing to be thinking while you're playing. It's going to require some mental effort, and it's going to feel uncomfortable because who wants to do all that effort, right? It will become natural in time the more you work at it, just like anything else. So I'm gonna conclude with that. I think that's enough information for today. But do you see my process? And a lot of this is really having a more advanced level of understanding in music theory. And now you don't have to be an expert in music theory. Every day, consider learning a new music theory concept, but don't learn it at level 1 and level 2 thinking. Always approach everything you're doing at those higher levels of learning because you will actually encode that information better, be less likely to forget that information, and you won't have to go through unending cycles of not understanding and everything like that because you have already put in the hard work. Why would you waste your own time? Learning is more fun when you take a little bit more time to let things sink in naturally. All right, let's jump back. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching that video. I hope you guys took something away from it, and if you did, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel. I love hearing you guys' feedback, and I'm so excited to make another video for you next week. Catch you guys in the next video. Bye!